Oh man, Ted, you picked another winner.
Yeah, Ted. I have seen some of the most unique movies because of you.
Applause. What's going on, everybody? Well, welcome to another patron request review, and this is going to be a patron collab review. Ted Harrington, one of my top contributors over on Patreon, is actually a mutual patron between me and Durbin from Durbania. We did a review last month on The Apple, which was also requested by Ted to do a little roundtable discussion on that, so if you feel like subjecting yourself to that, that's over on Durbania. It's a lot of fun, and just watch that, not the movie. Trust us. And then, today, we are going to be talking about a movie that I personally have never heard of. I don't believe Durbin's ever heard of, but we'll find out. And it is called Evilspeak. So this is another patron request from Ted Harrington. And I will start off by saying, Ted, you have picked some of the most unique movies that I've ever seen in my life. Durbin, quick thoughts on Evilspeak.
I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. It was, to quote the great Spock, fascinating.
So basically the plot of Evilspeak, you got Clint Howard, the youngest brother of the big director Ron Howard, yes, that Clint Howard. And he's in this military, basically academy. He's the guy who's bullied a lot. Basically this guy is terrorized by everybody. He's terrorized by his classmates, he's terrorized by his teachers, he's terrorized by his superiors. Nobody gives this guy a break. They just totally shit on him all day long. So, basic setup to an 80s movie, a revenge tale, and he finds this book in the catacombs, which they say is the basement, but it looks way too much like a catacombs for me. They find this book that has all this Satanist instructions from this crusade from back in the medieval times, this group of Satanists, and he basically uses this book to get revenge on everybody that terrorizes him. So kind of a familiar setup to some 80s movies, but where this movie is unique is that you get a 80s kind of satanic horror demonic movie that's kind of mixed with some of the themes and the feels of like a medieval movie. Does that sound pretty accurate, Durbin?
I think so. I mean, yeah. It's very 80s, it's very medieval, and then all of a sudden, like you said, it is very demonic with man-eating pigs and fire and swords. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So, I mean, within minutes, I knew this was going to be another movie where, just like The Apple, I was like, oh, wow, this is going to be interesting. So, for nothing else, Ted, thank you so much for bringing so much wide spectrums of interesting to my review channel. So, go ahead and let the cat out the bag. I didn't love this movie very much. So, I'll just kind of go ahead and put that out there. But I will start with some of my positives, but as far as first impressions of this movie, just kind of a quick little overlay, I think that it's an interesting idea on paper. I think that if this was a movie that maybe I grew up with, like I watched it in my childhood or at some point whenever I was young, and it'd be something I'd maybe have some nostalgia for how goofy it was. And I appreciate the fact that it has some different themes to throw into horror like the medieval stuff, but very cheesy, very badly acted, some very strange effects. And overall, just the entire plot of this movie is a plot that I've seen like a dozen times in other much better movies. So, the positives as far as Evilspeak. I'll let Durbin go first. Durbin, what is your positives for Evilspeak? I'll throw you under the proverbial bus.
The positives of Evilspeak. Okay. All right. Okay. If there were, and we're doing spoilers, right? Like I could just let the cat out of the bag on everything, correct?
Full spoilers, people. If you do not want to have the plot of the genius 1980s Evilspeak spoiled for you, turn the camera off now, go and buy it, and then come back and cuss me out for telling you to go and buy that movie.
So, all right, the positives of this movie. First off, as you said, they just crapped on this kid the whole way through. Everybody did.
Make you roll around in dick. Guys, try anything, you're gonna be sorry. Oh, yeah?
Let's see how it looks without pants.
Leave him alone!
Shut up! Cut it out! I'm gonna fix you guys! You guys are gonna pay for this! You're gonna pay for this!
And so, I think where this movie had a positive was, it really got you on this kid's side right out of the gate. I can't even remember his name. So that's probably a negative. Do you remember what his name was?
Cooper Smith or something like
Cooper
that. Was like
Smith, yes.
They kept calling him something like that. It was some really long, obnoxious name.
Yes, and they said it over and over. Point is they did a really good job of, I feel like they got me on his side. everybody was such a jerk to him. And yeah, I mean, I'm watching this, and yes, he's a little clumsy, and he could afford to do better in some areas. But, like, even his teachers and professors, they were all saying, he's, like, at this genius level. Like, he's really smart. He's really smart in his class. He's really smart with his work. Like, he is a smart and intelligent guy. And then his teachers, who call him a smart and intelligent guy, call him a dumb idiot, and they just crap all over him. They treat him like he's nothing. I mean, you have the soccer coach who, you know, the team is like, Coach, how are we going to win the game with Coopersmith here? And he's like, hey, by the rules of the school, he has to be here, and he has to play at least 2 out of the 4 quarters. Come here. But if he couldn't play for some reason... And so when you just see everybody team up against him, they did a great job, I think, of getting me on Coopersmith's side. Like, I just felt so unbelievably bad for this kid. On top of the fact, I'm like, this actor looks familiar. So finally, I looked him up on IMDb, and I did not think Ron Howard's brother. I went, oh, it's Johnny Bark from Arrested Development, and that guy from Waterboy. Those were my first thoughts. I was like, wow, he did not age well. But that's who that is. Sweet. But,
yeah, and if you have Clint Howard as your top billing actor, that's probably not a good sign.
Right. And then when he gets the puppy, that was another moment.
Oh my God, dude.
Like when you watch him bond with the puppy and how close he got with this puppy, how much he cared about this puppy. So when he finds the secret catacombs in the basement and he's hiding the puppy down there while he's finding this satanic book, getting ready for these satanic rituals, like, I think the best I could give this movie for positives is how it made me feel bad for Coopersmith, how it attached me to him, how it attached me to his puppy. So when the bullies came and they animal sacrificed his puppy on the altar just to be jerks, that got me.
Give me that knife. What are you gonna do with it? Just give me the knife.
Stop him!
Come on, Cooper Dick.
That's enough, Bubba!
Shut up! Bubba knows what he's doing. Right, Bubba?
Don't, Bubba!
Yes, and
that got me.
And you know what? That was when the movie suddenly had all of my attention, because like you said, where they immediately got you, I felt for him to a degree, because they really ramp it up with how much this guy just gets dumped on. I mean, it's to the point where, like, even if something's happening and he goes to tell his superiors, he's like, Sergeant so-and-so, I saw something in the bed. And they're like, shut up, Coopersmith. Go back and clean the catacombs. They never listen to a word he says. So,
yeah, they don't even let him finish his sentence.
Ever.
Like, I mean, some dude gets killed in the catacombs, and he goes to tell them, and they're like, shut up, you idiot. It's like...
So you do feel for him, because, it's, yeah, like you said, it's just like the dude just does not get a break anywhere. But that scene you're talking about with the puppy, dude, like, this is... one of the negatives I'll get into later is that I've seen this plot play out dozens of times. Never before have they given a scene that not only makes me, like, suddenly pay attention, but, like, usually in these situations you see the school bullies or whatever, and you're like, yeah, they probably deserve to get beat up or, you know, be embarrassed or something like that. I don't know if they should die in the movie necessarily. That's where you kind of go,
right.
Not this movie. As soon as that freaking puppy came along, dude, and you're talking about the cutest, like, next to John Wick, it's like the most emotionally, like, I don't even know the word. It's just you just kind of
I
can't even like you can't
the puppies
you can't even put into words how manipulative there's the manipulative, that emotionally manipulative puppy that they put in front of you, just the cutest thing in the world, and they don't show it, but they stab the hell out of this puppy on an altar just to be funny, just to be jerks, like a night out, almost like they were egging somebody's house. And when he finds that, and I wasn't even sure if they actually stabbed him at first, because they don't show it. I was like, oh.
No, they don't. Thank the Lord for those tiny mercies that, you know, for all that they did show in this movie, we did not see the puppy eat it.
So then, so Clint Howard goes down in the catacombs to find this puppy, and he's been raising this puppy because it was basically not going to live, and he's been the one bringing it back up to health and everything like that. And he found
so much purpose in life, not just, you know, the Vengeance book, like that gave him some purpose, but he found so much purpose in loving this dog. I mean, it makes it so much more painful, and you hate the bullies all the
Yeah,
more.
and he goes down, he finds the little bit of blood on the altar, and I was like, oh no, they actually did it. And then he finds that it doesn't really show him like pull the carcass out, but he shows him holding it later on, and he's just covered in blood. Like they just stabbed this puppy who knows how many times.
Oh,
and from that
gosh.
point on, I was like, no, murder all of them. I don't care. Like murder them violently.
Yeah.
Make sure there's practical effects so I can see the skin come off. Murder them. Like, and it's one of those, like I said, I've seen this plot so many times, but I've never wanted the bullies to die so much than I have in this movie. So yes, huge positive is that they totally manipulate you into, no matter how satanic this guy gets, you are on his side. You're like, yeah, demon boy,
Yeah.
get him. So,
Yeah.
so yes.
But you're right, though. That's the thing. It's like, on the surface, this movie really is not that deep, and it's not that good. But where this movie got you is it emotionally manipulates you with how bad this kid is bullied, and then it goes that step further, and we get a puppy.
Yes.
And they had these cute shots of this puppy that they kept returning to. I cared more about the puppy than I did about Cooper Smith. But,
I did
oh
too.
my gosh.
I did too. Yeah. And
Yeah.
When as soon as that scene came on, especially like everything leading up to that scene too, like just the way that they were treating this puppy, like the one guy like grabbed it by its neck and pulled it up, and like you had the janitor or the groundskeeper earlier that almost twisted the puppy's head all the way around, and you had the one guy that looked like he was going to put the fire underneath the dog, and it's just like all this violence towards this little puppy was just pissing me off, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. And it's like all because they hate Cooper Smith that they're tormenting this dog that is so utterly innocent in all of this. It's like all those scenes, like I think the thing that got me was that janitor dude that was living in the basement drunk all the time. When he was twisting the dog's head, I thought that was it, man. That had me on the edge, and whatever. That was just angering.
Me too. It seems weird that we can watch people get mutilated and feel nothing, but you look at a puppy getting its head not even twisted all the way around, and you're like, no! Like it just grabs you so much. But yeah.
Well, it's because none of the people in this movie are innocent. I feel horrible for saying this, but I think that's kind of it. Nobody in this movie was innocent. That puppy did no wrong to anyone, and it did not deserve that. Oh my gosh.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'm glad you got that out of the way. That is a big positive, is that you do really feel for the character, especially after that scene. You feel for his motivations, and you want him to prevail no matter how bloody it gets. Another positive, which I kind of touched on, which I can appreciate because I haven't seen it too many times, was the fact that they kind of mixed medieval crusade style themes and things like that into a horror movie. I have never really seen that too much. Maybe there's plenty of them I just haven't unearthed, but I thought it was weird at first. I was like, where are they going with this? This is like, there's like Excalibur and stuff going on. This is supposed to be a horror movie. But whenever it kind of started dipping into the actual present time as far as when this movie came out, and those themes started coming back, and the swords and the crusade and the Satanists and everything, I thought that was interesting enough of a change for me, because I've seen horror mixed with many different genres. I don't know how many times, if ever, I've seen medieval kind of crusade style movies mixed with a horror movie. So I thought that was interesting.
I thought it was interesting, but that kind of fits more in my negative category, so we'll talk about that when we get there, and I'll tell you what specifically makes it kind of a negative for me.
Exactly. Well, you don't have to wait too long because we're already here. Go ahead with your
Oh,
negatives.
okay.
Because that's all I got. That's all I got for positives.
Oh, man. All right. Okay, so this is our negatives. Okay, so to the medieval thing. The way the movie opens, it's interesting, right? It opens in those medieval times. They're doing some weird... I don't know if it's just... I think they're doing Black Mass. I don't know what they're doing. They're on some beach, and then the representatives of the church show up to excommunicate them and banish them from the country altogether. Then they get into that weird whatever they do, and the guy takes his sword and he wallops off the girl's head, and her head goes hurtling like a golf ball, and she's smiling about this, like getting on her knees, accepting this sacrifice. So here's why this is negative to me. I don't understand, even after watching this movie, why did she get on her knees and willingly take this sacrifice? And I didn't understand where that came back into play in this movie at all. So maybe you did. Maybe it's something that I totally missed in all the weirdness of this movie. But that's why that's kind of a negative to me. I thought the medieval thing was cool. And you're right, they did bring back other themes. But it felt like whatever that Black Mass ritual they were performing was, and her willingness to lay her life down like that was, it felt like it was something that should have repeated Wait, now that
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it, does it have to do with the blood sacrifice where he bent that guy in half and stabbed him up on the chandelier? Is that what that was? Was that setting up the blood sacrifice he's got to make later?
It was either that, or I assumed it was just somebody like, kind of like leading sheep, where he's just like, hey, if you want to be in, the presence of our Lord Satan, then you have to get your head chopped off. Yes, sir. And she gets down. Like,
Yeah.
people have done that in cults and stuff like that. So I kind of just brushed it off as that. I didn't really read too much into it.
That's true. I mean, maybe I read too much into things, which is why I do theological analyses on my channel, because I just naturally read way too much into things. But I was just like, okay, that was a really strong, powerful scene, and it feels like something more obviously connected to that should have come back. Now that I've said it out loud, I kind of think it's when Cooper Smith threw that guy up on that chandelier and he's kind of poked through on it and the blood poured, and that was his blood sacrifice where he got all these powers. But then the satanic guy in the beginning didn't get powers. Maybe that was just where he put his soul away somewhere where he can possess a computer later, but I don't know.
Yeah. Did you notice how effortlessly he threw him into the ceiling, too? It was like he was made of tissue paper. He was like,
Yes.
ha! The guy just goes, ah! And he just hits the ceiling. So, oh man. Okay, well, since I just kind of dipped my toe into it, let's talk about some of the effects in this movie.
Oh, gosh. Oh, gosh.
So, I think
gosh.
the most entertaining thing for me was after he started to kind of go through this possession thing, and they kept repeating this shot where like wind and everything is blowing on Clint Howard, and they would superimpose like this small opacity picture of a demon or above the guy in the crusade above his face. Like,
Yep.
today it would be like a CGI effect, his face would morph, but they basically stuck a picture in front of his face. Like, oh, look, I'll do it for the sake of this video. I'm holding a sword and I'm putting somebody's face. This is exactly how it looks like in the movie. It was hilarious to me because I was like, oh god, are they really just doing that? They're taking a picture and or another frame and putting it in. Oh man, that was hilarious.
What was the worst about that frame was it was such an intense scene, and it's got to be something cool. But it looked like not just any picture. They took a rubber mask of a warthog, and it looked like it had a fake rubber plastic snake coming out of its mouth. And so you have this incredibly fake rubber mask with this fake rubber snake superimposing on and off his face. So not only did the effect look bad, but the actual thing that they were using as the effect looked bad. It was terrible.
Oh yeah, it was hilarious to me. I saw it and I was like, oh god, like, oh man. And then you sent me a meme immediately before we recorded this that was the same scene, and I was like, we have got to discuss that. So
yes,
that's awesome. Again, like I said, the effortlessly throwing the teacher into the ceiling before he's even possessed. He's just like, done with you. Ah! And then the guy just lands in the ceiling into some spikes. I also really loved. Whenever he's finally possessed and he's going around in this church slaying everybody with this sword, and he's literally on two strings, and they're just kind of like moving him around the church, and he's got this face on the whole time. He's just like, and until somebody dies, that's all you see is Clint Howard holding a sword and this face getting pulled around on two wires. And this is so funny because I'm like, I know the church is locked, but it's just hilarious to me. I'm like, I could outrun him for days in that church. Like he's floating around slowly, and everybody's just like, no. And then they get their head taken off. Which I will give a little bit of practical effects credit though. Whenever people did get killed, they were pretty good practical effects. The guy got his head twisted all the way around. The decapitation. So one more small positive. The practical effects and the gore were pretty good, passable.
I do agree, but what was hilarious about that scene, back to what you said about him moving so slow and how you can outrun him for days, I think he killed like 2 people. Yeah. And everybody else either burned up in the hellfire or they were eaten by the pigs that somehow made it in there and were eating people alive. Like, he killed, I think I counted 2 kills by him in that scene. There's possibly 3, but whatever. Everybody else was killed either by the crucifix that was hanging up on the wall, or they were killed by the fire in the room, or they were killed by the man-eating pigs. He was going so slow, and that kind of made his vengeance less satisfying to me. Because like you said, they killed this dog. And not just a dog, a baby puppy. And so you kind of want to watch their skin melt off. And you kind of got that with the pigs and things like that. But what made it not satisfying was it wasn't Coopersmith. He was just floating around with that weird, demented look on his face and got like a couple of them. Everybody else, it's like, what? This isn't as satisfying.
And to that point, I think the entire conclusion is unsatisfying because, yes, that's exactly where I was going to go with it. Not only does he not get to kill everybody, but the main guy that you want to see get it bad, the one who actually stabbed the puppy and was the biggest douche and, king douchebag of the little 3 people that was messing with him the entire movie, the groundskeeper comes to life out of absolutely nowhere, pulls his heart out of his chest, and that's the last thing you see. So it's like Coopersmith, and I hope that's his name, otherwise we're going to get trashed. But anyway, Coopersmith.
Wait. Are we really going to get trashed? How many people have actually seen this movie?
You would be surprised, man. Trust me, I dip in the horror world very often. But anyway, but anyway, Coopersmith, if that is his real name, doesn't even get to kill the main guy that you want to see die. This random zombie groundskeeper comes back, pulls his heart out of his chest, and they commit one of the most cardinal sins for movies for me, one of my biggest pet peeves. They end everything and they give you your conclusion in text form. And I hate that. They stop the movie. They stop the movie immediately after King Douchebag dies, and it types out on a computer how everything turned out with Coopersmith. Like, after the events, Coopersmith, decided that he did a lot of wrong, and he went into catatonic shock, and he got put in an insane asylum, and he's still there today. Or is he? It's like, wait a minute. That's not how this works. Like, you don't, for a movie that manipulates you so much with that puppy scene, and gets you on his side so much, this is the least satisfying of any of these style of revenge thrillers or revenge horror movies I've seen about that person who is dipping into the dark world actually getting his vengeance. Like you said, he chops off 2 heads.
And they're not even the guys you care that much about. They're the cronies that followed the real jerk.
Yeah. So that whole conclusion to me, I nodded off for a second and I saw that conclusion and I was like, no, I missed something. And I fast forwarded all the way back to the point whenever he rose out of the catacombs and fire and watched the whole scene again, and I'm like, I didn't miss a single thing. He didn't kill the guy that I wanted him to kill. What the hell? And
I know. And then the fact that he gets put in that insane asylum, so what happens? He spends this whole movie being mistreated by everybody, and you can only guess he's going to be put in that asylum where, guess what? He's going to continue to be mistreated by everybody. So, in the end, he got no vengeance. He got nothing that made him feel any better, and he ended in this movie worse than how he started. Because at least the way this movie opens, as he's being bullied, had he had never done any of that, he could have at least gone on to do great things, become a billionaire, make them all grovel at his feet.
Yeah.
No. He goes to an insane asylum, and we can't even get the sweet release that we got from John Wick when he goes out there and takes out everybody for killing his puppy. We don't even get that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That was probably my biggest negative next to this one, which I've already kind of touched on. But for me personally, the entire plot and setup of this movie, I've literally seen dozens of times. You see it in movies like Trick or Treat, where it's more of a metal version. The kid's bullied. He uses dark elements to get back at them. I mean, probably most famously, we saw it in Carrie. I mean, you could name movies left and right that do the same exact plot point. And to that degree, the movie's very predictable. From the very beginning of the movie, as soon as he gets that book, I was like, oh, he's going to dip into it a little bit. Things weird are going to happen. The bullying's going to get worse. Eventually something's going to happen. It's going to throw him over the edge. He's going to go balls deep into this evil stuff. And he's going to murder everybody, and the movie's going to end. And hey, guess what? I was 100% correct. So
that was the exact flow of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. So it's one of those movies where, and to its credit, I have no idea when this movie came out as far as the timeline of those types of movies. I think Carrie came out first, but this may have been one of the first movies to do that. But watching it in 2017, it feels like the 40th movie that's done that.
Yeah.
So I'll
this
give
one
it a
came out in
little bit of leeway.
1981, 1982. And you have given me some good horror movies that came out in that 80s range, like The Thing and Fright Night and other stuff. And I'm watching those things, I'm like, these are so good. Mm-hmm. What went wrong with Evilspeak?
Yeah, I don't know. It was just, you could tell it was a very low-budget movie. That it was destined to be a VHS on the shelf of a video store. For those of you that even remember what those are. So it's like I said, it's one of those movies that had I grown up with it, if my dad owned Evilspeak and he threw it in when I was, maybe 6 or 7, I'd probably enjoy it enough back then, and I'd probably have some nostalgia for it now. But unfortunately for Evilspeak, seeing it for the first time in 2017, all I saw was the flaws for the most part, and it's hard for me to get past all those flaws to enjoy what people who do like this movie, because I'm sure there are some, what they see in it.
Yeah. I think what you said and what we've been talking about, what makes me see the flaws is how unsatisfying the whole ending is. Like, it's like you watch all this and then it doesn't go anywhere. And then when you want to watch the bad guy, eat it. When you want to watch Cooper Smith take out the bad guy because the bad guy stabbed his puppy mercilessly again and again and again, we don't even get that. So it's like, it's just... And then he goes into an asylum. Okay, I'm repeating what we've said, but I mean, that's really what bogs this movie down for me, is as much as I got into the positives of I'm on Cooper Smith's side because of all the things we've talked about, the fact that we don't even get any satisfaction at the end of this movie, it just makes all of its flaws all that more glaring to me.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just one of those things where it's hard to go back to a movie or even recommend it to somebody if you don't find yourself satisfied in the end. That's the cornerstone of the movie experience, is getting that satisfaction of your story at the end. And you look at movies that are similar to this, like Trick or Treat, where the bullies get theirs, but he also defeats the evil and comes out on top. You look at movies like Carrie, where ultimately she's a tragic figure, but everybody you wanted to die died violently. And there's all these things about the satisfaction of the ending that's just missing here. Very badly for how manipulative they are with that puppy. And it sounds ridiculous how extreme you want that satisfaction over that puppy, but if you watch the movie and you watch how that scene plays out, like, you want to jump into the screen yourself and start slaying dudes. So,
man, in my mind's eye, I jumped through my TV screen and I knew Kung Fu like Neo from The Matrix, and I was taking those guys out, man. I mean, it was bad when they were messing. Before they even killed the puppy, I was ready to jump through the screen to intervene. But when he took that knife and was boom, boom, it is emotionally manipulative, and then you don't get the payoff. That is what sucks.
I want to see that movie. I want to see a movie that starts with the Crusade Satanists, moves into Cooper Smith and his military academy and him dipping into the dark arts. The puppy's about to be killed, and Doc Brown and Durbin come in from 2017 and start playing Kung Fu on everybody and save the day. I want to see that movie. Hollywood.
Oh,
I want to see that movie.
I'm now thinking Rick and Morty, where it's actually Rick and Summer that do that. They beef up, get really strong, fly around the spaceship, and start beating people up. It's hilarious.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I mean, there of course there's other flaws. I mean, there's some bad acting here and there, but I mean, it's hard to dive into how bad the acting is because it's across the board. I mean, like I said, if you have Clint Howard and that's your top billing star, you know there's a problem, because there's a reason the guy doesn't have a huge career. You just recognize him here and there. But for the most part, I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts. Was there any kind of final thoughts you had on Evilspeak?
Nope. I've spoke my speak.
Exactly. We've spoken our evil. So, in the end of the day, guys, on my rating scale for this movie, I'm just going to have to say skip it. I'm going to give it like a 1.5 out of 5. I mean, there's some elements of it that was cool. Had they had a really awesome conclusion, I probably could have bumped this up to see it on Netflix, just for the fascination of how bad it is in some spots. But at the same time, you get this ultimate satisfaction. It could have gotten there, but since we didn't get that, I can't recommend it, because trudging through some of the bad stuff to not get a satisfying ending, I can't put anybody through that. So, yeah. Durbin, what is your rating for this movie?
I think I gotta end this with a D-. I can't go all the way F, because Ted Harrington, our good friend, introduced us to the apple.
Yes.
And that is a new definition of what a bad movie is. And Evilspeak does not quite hit that definition. There was enough in Evilspeak that entertained me more, but yeah, it's totally unsatisfying. D-.
Yeah. Awesome. So that's our thoughts on Evilspeak, guys. Sorry, Ted. I don't know if you were a fan of this movie or if this was like your 1-2 punch of pain for us. Are you sure you really like us? That's what I want to know. Comment down below, or if this is just some kind of weird game. I'm just kidding, Ted. But anyway, thank you, Ted, for your support. I'm sure me and Durbin, like I said, I'll let Durbin say his piece too, but I'm sure Durbin's just as thankful for your support as I am. And if you guys want to check out our Patreon pages. I will put the links for both of them down below if you want to join on the fun and recommend some movies. Whether you want us to do roundtable discussions or do our own individual videos on them, that's the way to do it, is to check out our Patreon page. So thank you for the recommendation, Ted. And Durbin, go ahead and take it away. Tell us where we can find the Apple, the rest of your videos, and say all your stuff.
Well, you can find the Apple, the rest of my videos, right here on Durbania. So just type Durbania into YouTube. I'll be the one and only channel that pops up. I do very similar things to Cody. I got my movie reviews. I have ranking videos, theological analyses, and awesome, great roundtable discussions with Cody Leach over the DC universe, and the requested one by Ted Harrington, The Apple, which, Ted, I know, was not a huge fan of The Apple, not a huge fan of this, but thank you so much, dude. Like, it's been so fun watching the movies that you've had us watch. I mean, even if they're not the best, honestly, I've had a blast. So thank you so much, Ted.
Yeah, and you know, I concur. The same exact thing. Even though these aren't movies where I'm like angered, like, oh, Ted Harrington. It's one of those things where it's so bad that it's enjoyable, and I can't think of anybody more entertaining and fun to talk about these kind of movies with than Durbin. So thank you for asking and recommending we do a roundtable discussion, because I would rather do this than do my own individual reviews and put all that work into a movie like Apple and this. So awesome. So if you guys want to check out the rest of our videos, you know where to do it. Please like and share this video. Hit the subscribe button over here and over at Durbania if you're not already a subscribers. I got my social media links, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter down below, as well as my Patreon page and Durbin's Patreon page if you want to check that out, guys. And if you want to check out some more of our videos, you can check out a few more by clicking right over here.